whether she has any feelings for him. The companion responds by asking what she's talking about, explaining that she is simply happy to see him. Huang Se suggests that she should ask him out. Lee Sungwoo watches the news reporting his successful dungeon clearance and ponders whether there are still skills of which he remains unaware. He wonders about the kind of skill he used to clear the dungeon in just 2 minutes. As his phone's recharge depletes, he contemplates the likelihood that all his Japanese bank accounts have been frozen. He realizes that if he sells the blood crystals in his inventory, he'll likely be discovered. He overhears people speaking ill of him and praising Park Soo-ho. He decides that he should use these individuals as the first sacrifice for upgrading the regression stone. Sun Jinwoo recalls a childhood memory when he attempted to catch a football on the road, and a truck was approaching him. In that dire moment, a person intervened and saved him, but at the cost of their own life. He awakens in the hospital, where medical staff inquire about what happened and inform him that they heard Park Soo-ho rescued him and the other soldiers. On the other side, Han Dong-soo and Park Jun-ho open the door, and Hong Se girl inquires whether Soo-ho is not awake yet, as they had agreed to meet today. Han Dong-soo mentions that Park Soo-ho has not awakened yet. She hands them kimbap soaked in raspberry wine and requests them to give it to him, as well as to call her when he wakes up. After she departs, Park Jun-ho remarks that he never knew he was this good with women. They proceed to check on Park Soo-ho, who is sleeping in a wild boar transformation. Park Jun-ho suggests attempting to wake him up, but Han Dong-soo recounts a previous experience when he tried to do that as a wolf and nearly got bitten to death. Just then, Hong Se enters the room with a scream and inquires if Park Soo-ho is awake. He transforms into a cat, and she picks him up, hugs him, and explains that after the SF unit dispatch ends tomorrow, she will have to return to the guild and won't be able to see him for a while, so she wants to spend some time with him. Han Dong-soo points out that it's almost time for the transformation to end. Shortly thereafter, Choi Soo-young and Sun Jinwoo arrive to meet Park Soo-ho. He transforms back into a human, but after the transformation, he finds himself in a very inappropriate state with her. Choi Soo-young sees them, becomes angry, throws a box of bacchus at his head, and departs. Sun Jinwoo expresses his gratitude, mentioning that he wanted to thank him and has learned that receiving help doesn't only burden others. He promises to use the life that was saved to save more lives in return. Meanwhile, a member of Korea's Awaken Bureau's criminal task force is tailing Lee Sun. She inquires about his identity, to which he introduces himself, and asks why a woman who was found dead from a gunshot wound to the head at a murder scene in Silumdong is now alive and present. She becomes angry and transforms, turning into a lizard and subsequently killing him. Meanwhile, the director is engaged in a phone conversation. After he finishes the call, Kim Miso approaches and informs him that an order has been received from the Army's Special Warfare Command. The order entails disbanding the coalition and dispatching SF Unit 770 to the Level 6 dungeon in Seoul's Area 5. He acknowledges the urgency of the situation in Seoul. She adds that it's not just Seoul, the entire world is in turmoil. He expresses his weariness and mentions that saving the country is only enjoyable the first few times. She informs him that the executives are waiting in the conference room at the bureau and offers to connect via video. General Manager Kim is on the call and appears to be very distressed. He questions why he looks that way and if they all attended some boot camp. General Manager Kim responds by stating that there is a highly serious situation and insists that he must quickly come to the bureau. He states that trouble appears to be brewing in Russia. The director inquires if the Russian army possesses a stock of conventional weapons. If so, why are they doing this? He explains that the current scale of the monster wave, which originated in Harbin, has been assessed to exceed the capacity of conventional weapons. He adds, however, that the problem lies in the fact that if the monster's northbound route is altered due to nuclear weapons, the monsters destined for Russia will instead head towards North Korea. He mentions that the army is preparing for this possibility by dispatching and stationing the 1st and 3rd Corps at Paju and Dongganian along the Imjin River. However, he expresses concern that if the wave combines with the monsters in North Korea and heads south, they believe it would be challenging to contain them with their military's firepower alone. He concludes, surely they won't head in that direction. The director inquires about the situation concerning their country's dungeons. He is informed that 14 dungeons have emerged in Seoul today, including 6 level 6 dungeons. He says the requests for combat teams to be dispatched have been pouring in, but other guilds are also facing a shortage of combat teams, leaving no solution in sight. The director remarks, they're telling me there are 6 level 6 dungeons. It's a total disaster. He reveals that 2 special task force members who are investigating a suspect have been murdered, and the suspect managed to escape. The director asks, who is the killer? Are they an awakener? He responds they believe it is a vampire who has died and been resurrected 3 times. After a while, the next morning, the SF unit gets ready to depart and bid farewell to each other. Kim Miso suggests to Choi Soo-young that she should return to the detection team. She is told to be sent to the most critical area as she expresses her desire to become stronger. Meanwhile, news reports that Russia has dropped a nuclear missile. It is mentioned that they cannot say much when they drop a bomb on their land, but they eventually do it. The director suggests the need to strengthen the defense wall around Seoul, which belongs to the territory of the Shilla Guild and Goryeo Guild. They receive a request for cooperation has already been received from both guilds, and the break time is incredibly short. Moreover, there is a shortage of combat teams. However, the only person who can resolve this situation is Park Soo-ho. They say that there are claims that he could handle all the dungeons in Seoul if he wanted to, but he has not taken any action. Additionally, there have been reports from the Guild Association that the Soo-ho Guild is not contributing much considering the benefits they receive. After a while, Park Soo-ho and Han Dong-soo are engaged in a conversation on a mountain. Han Dong-soo observes the news about people holding a candlelight rally because he is not taking any action while Seoul is in chaos due to the presence of dungeons. Currently, there are 2 level 6 dungeons in Area 2, and the available break time is only 27 days. He questions why he should venture into hunting grounds within other people's territory. Just then, they notice Kim Miso approaching them. She informs them that a request for cooperation has been received from the Awakener Bureau. She requests them to listen to her explanation first, as there are several dungeons that they cannot contain without his assistance at the moment. Meanwhile, they witness an explosion in Suho land, and she questions whether it's the blood crystal power plant. Han Dong-soo speculates that it might be Lee Sung-woo. People are heard saying that the injured should be taken outside, and some individuals are trapped within. Park Jun-ho states that they cannot enter due to the fire. Jang Yi-shik arrives and inquires about the situation. Han Dong-soo responds, suggesting that a blood crystal generation may have exploded. He suggests that they should prioritize extinguishing the fire. Then, Park Soo-ho arrives and employs a water vortex, causing a whirlpool of water to appear in the sky. People begin to fall from the building. He immediately calls wyverns for assistance, and they are all saved by wyvern. Kim Miso inquires about what happened. Park Jun-ho responds, suggesting that there may have been a problem with one of the blood crystal generators, but they won't have certainty until it's thoroughly investigated. She points out that although the DGB's blood crystal generators have occasionally caused problems, an explosion of this magnitude warrants assembling all the team leaders. Park Soo-ho expresses his desire to construct a large moat around Soo-ho's land. Park Jun-ho questions if he intends to encircle the outer walls from Uijeongbu to Namyeongju with a moat. He raises concerns about the exorbitant cost of such a massive construction project. Park Soo-ho jests that he will need to go earn money unless he happens upon a treasure dungeon or something of the sort. Kim Miso mentions the existence of a treasure dungeon, specifically a level 4 scorpion dungeon in Gwangju Field in the Gyeonggi province. This dungeon has 12 days remaining before it breaks, and it yields valuable items dropped every hour, with the potential to gather 4-5 blood crystals per person. She notes that the Scorpion Dungeon is currently under the management of the Goryeo Guild in the southern fields of Gyeonggi Province. Interestingly, a cooperation request has already arrived from the Goryeo Guild. She explains that the Goryeo Guild's parent company, Goryeo Construction, boasts 50 years of experience in river construction, and by cooperating effectively, they can complete the construction at half the price. Jang Yi-shik expresses his desire to use this opportunity to thoroughly test his new strength. Myungjin suggests that if he wishes to do so, they could each form a party with the recruits in the guild. She assures them that during their absence, she will handle the contract negotiations with Goryeo Construction. The news broadcast announces that the Suho Guild's party of 5 has finally commenced their raid on Gyeonggi Province's Scorpion Dungeon and Gwangju Field. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, they are engaged in a fierce battle against the scorpions, successfully defeating them and collecting the blood crystals. On the other side, in Mongolia, soldiers are confronting thousands of monsters heading toward their position. Simultaneously, in the Situation Room at the Scorpion Dungeon in Gyeonggi Province, an Awaken a Bureau member enters and inquires of an operator when they expect Park Soo-ho to exit the dungeon. The operator responds that there are 4 days remaining until the dungeon break, but they've heard that he intends to take his time farming the last boar before exiting. The Awaken a Bureau member conveys this information to the director seated in the bureau, who instructs him to relay a message. When Park Suho emerges, he should be informed that Uijeongbu's Suho land is on the verge of being reduced to ashes, and his entire family will meet their demise. Meanwhile, in a meeting, an individual presents an image on the screen to the president. He explains that it's a picture of their front line captured by one of the drones, showing a recent meteor impact. He reveals that 3 meteors, each measuring 23 feet in diameter, crashed in Dongdaecheon Field, resulting in the annihilation of everything within a 4-mile radius, including the frontline operation area of the 11th Corps. He reports the detection of significant waves of dimensional energy at the moment of impact and mentions finding meteor summoning magic in Planet Aruka's Magic Encyclopedia. He says they initially considered the possibility that one of the North Korean returnees possessed taming skills, but they've now concluded that it's likely a vampire. He notes that a level 7 dungeon broke in Giseong not too long ago, and they suspect it was a vampire dungeon. They draw a connection to the vampire serial murder cases reported in Seoul, and believe that some of these vampires may have infiltrated Seoul. The president questions how vampires, who cannot be killed with their current technology, have made their way from Giseong to Seoul. Someone suggests that they should lock down all gates within Seoul. The news broadcast reports that the surging monsters have annihilated the entire First Corps subordinate unit following the meteor crash in Paju Field. Consequently, the Third Corps subordinate unit has decided to abandon their current frontline position, withdraw to the Seoul barriers, and regroup to halt the monster wave that originated in Kazakhstan. The Chinese government is initiating a tactical nuclear attack in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Simultaneously, the Russians have launched their tactical nuclear attack on Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. The report also brings another breaking news update. Martial law has been declared in Seoul. Meanwhile, the director makes a call to Kim Miso, who is currently in Suho Land, Uijeongbu. He urgently advises her to evacuate the area if she wishes to survive. He explains that they are in the midst of a national emergency, and the Third Corps subordinate unit is currently retreating toward the Seoul barriers, with their location being near Uijeongbu. He strongly urges her to join that unit and make her way down there, emphasizing that if she misses this chance to leave, she will soon find herself surrounded by monsters. He reveals that there are plans to bomb Uijeongbu once the monster clusters there. Meanwhile, people are departing from Gate 34 when suddenly, Choi Soo-young arrives and eliminates a vampire who had just bitten a soldier. She instructs the team to set up all the equipment around the gate and stand by. She then enters the gate area and inquires if everyone from Suho Land has passed through, mentioning Sukja Lee and Kim Miso by name. However, she informs that their names are not on the list. On the other side, Kim Miso approaches Granny and emphasizes the urgency of their departure. Granny points out that Gunwoo's father and uncle have not yet arrived, and she questions how Kim Miso expects her to leave without them. Just then, a newbie arrives and reports that all the construction workers are hurrying out, but they can't locate Gunwoo anywhere. Granny suggests that if he's not around, he might be playing in the beast's resting zone. Suddenly, the newbie points out the window and remarks that the sky is taking on an unusual appearance. They all turn their attention to the window to see what's happening outside. Vampires launch an attack on the Suho Guild. When Kim Miso spots them, she issues orders to close the door, but they manage to destroy everything and gain entry into Suho's house. Kim Miso directs everyone to get behind her as they approach. She employs a firebomb to counter their attack. Once more, she urgently instructs everyone to leave and heads towards the beast farm. She engages in a battle with them, but a vampire lands a punch on her, sending her unconscious. They proceed to attack her for her fresh blood. Granny intervenes to rescue Kim Miso, using a pan to fend off the vampires. However, one of the vampires punches Granny as well, and they resume attacking Kim Miso for her blood. The soldiers contemplate their options, unsure of what to do next. Just as a vampire is about to bite Kim Miso, Choi Soo-young arrives and attacks, ultimately killing them. She instructs the soldiers to take both Kim Miso and Granny and make their way towards the beast farm. Bats also start following them and transform into vampires. She continues to fight against them. On the other side, a vampire appears before the soldiers who are carrying Granny and Kim Miso. Suddenly, a Biku emerges and attacks, killing the vampire. Choi Soo-young deploys a defense bomb against the vampires to eliminate them, but they surround her. Meanwhile, Park Soo-ho arrives and attacks the vampires with fire fairies, reducing them to ashes. He questions the nature of these creatures. Cheetos Rakwala seizes Choi Soo-young and carries her away. Park Soo-ho examines her status screen and questions why she is causing havoc on someone else's territory. She responds that, from now on, it's her home ground. He initiates an attack with fire fairies, but it doesn't have a significant impact on her, and she remains unyielding. He makes another attempt to attack and hurls her away. She reaches a garden area, where she remarks that it's as fresh as she expected, and her wounds are regenerating rapidly. Park Soo-ho comments on her resilience, noting that she must want to live badly to go to such lengths. He inquires if she has ever heard of a planet called the Animal Kingdom. She replies that, based on her subject's visit to Earth about 12 years ago, it was merely a primitive planet ruled by lowly creatures called humans. She believes that humans, being savages, couldn't possibly harm her. He mentions that she's the first one who hasn't perished after being attacked by his fairies and muses that they could have been friends if she hadn't trespassed on his territory to challenge him. She asserts that she will kill him regardless of her identity, as this is her territory from this moment on. She tries to wake Choi Suong by mentioning her daughter. When she awakens, she commands her to kill him. She attacks with a sword and slashes her neck. She questions if the sword is God's artifact, suggesting that it should be destroyed if she cannot possess it. She kicks her head away, but she performs some magic with her finger in the sky. She wonders if it's a meteor. She responds that it's just the beginning and that her enraged warriors will annihilate every living thing on this land until there is nothing left. Park Soo-ho transforms into a black bear and attempts to intercept her stone attacks. He also summons a tornado to hurl the stones out of the earth, which inadvertently strikes a satellite. In Japan's defense headquarters, they report the loss of signal from the combat satellite MSZ-1 and begin investigating. Park Soo-ho wonders if he managed to dispose of it safely, as it felt like something had exploded. She suggests that next time, she should begin with the vampire's mouth. He inquires if she's all right, to which she responds by asking why he's asking, as she doesn't appear injured to him. He acknowledges that she's always been a bit eccentric and suggests that she might not require any medicine. He expresses gratitude to her for saving his family. Monk Myunjin, Park Jun-ho, Jang Yi-shik, and Han Dong-soo arrive at the scene. Monk Myunjin asks what he just sent flying into the sky. It appears as though he smashed a meteor with his fist and sent it into space. Park Soo-ho inquires about the well-being of the others. Park Jun-ho reports that Aunt Sukja and the chief are recovering at the medical center, while Gunwoo has been taken to the dormitory. Han Dong-soo informs them that tens of thousands of monsters are now converging in their direction, and an evacuation order has been issued. He adds that the chief mentioned a massive bombing would take place soon, and they needed to escape. She provides specific information, stating that approximately 120,000 monsters are approaching from 6.1 kilometers outside the outer wall of the Suho Land Castle. Park Soo-ho concurs, mentioning that the military has already pulled back, and they should follow suit. Park Jun-ho is instructed to make a call and inform them not to engage his prey. Concerned about the ongoing situation, she remarks that it might already be too late. He makes a call and learns that the artillery fire has commenced, and there will be an air raid soon. Everyone starts running towards safety, and he comments on the difficulty of stopping a million creatures now. At the military base camp, they assess the situation at Suho Land and observe the initiation of the Apache Squadron attack. They express surprise, wondering if these monsters possess anti-air capabilities as well. After a while, a team assembles at the Presidential National Crisis Management Situation Room. The director questions whether they are currently utilizing all available firepower, and notes that the damage to the monster horde is minimal, merely slowing down their advance. He recognizes the strength of the enemy. He seeks advice on what they should do. In response, they suggested that they issue an evacuation order for Seoul in case a massive meteor attack was to target the city. The director vehemently opposes this idea, emphasizing the substantial investment made in Seoul. At that moment, a person enters the room with the news that the United States has approved a nuclear strike, and a B-1B Lancer is launching from Guam. Their faces light up with excitement as they contemplate their survival. Meanwhile, the news reports that the approved warhead is a 10 KT nuclear warhead named Amazing Goodman, which is expected to be dropped in approximately an hour and 40 minutes. The designated drop point is the Olo-Nakiang Station Field. If it explodes at an altitude of 500 meters, it is anticipated to have a shockwave damage effect extending up to 4.26 kilometers. He says Seoul lies beyond the reach of the shockwave's influence. However, there are concerns about potential long-term radiation exposure, especially in Uijeongbu, where Suho Land is located. He also notes that the B-1B Lancer Squadron has recently taken off from Guam, and a national crisis is unfolding. There is particular worry regarding the safety of Suho Land. The director raises the point that Suho Land's purpose is to defend Seoul, and suggests deploying the iridium shield on Seoul's outer wall to eliminate the threat. Meanwhile, the soldiers express their inability to hold on any longer, and the Apache squadron begins to retreat. They notice something and inquire amongst themselves about what just passed by them. A soldier discerns that it is Park Soo-ho, who has arrived there in the form of an eagle. He employs the power of Earth Fury and submerges all the monsters underground. She observes that they are all being drawn into the ground. Han-dong-soo questions whether it is over now, but then they witness the giants resurfacing. Once again, he launches an attack on them, this time with tree trunks, and the monsters are being crushed by the tree trunks. Meanwhile, in the Blue House National Crisis Management Situation Room, a meeting takes place where they watch a video of Park Soo-ho's battle against the monsters. The president inquired if Park Soo-ho caused an earthquake and then initiated a fire. An individual informs him that the 120,000 monsters he was concerned about have been eliminated. The president instructs them to immediately recall the nuclear bombers. On the other side, Park Soo-ho initiates an attack on the monsters, but he suddenly faints and becomes motionless. The monsters begin to advance toward him. Choi Soo-young and others rush forward to assist him and engage in combat with the monsters. Meanwhile, Lee Sung-woo is working in a shop and overhears some customers discussing the vampire situation. He checks the regressor's stone on a status screen and observes that living as Lee Sung-woo offers significant advantages for upgrading the regressor's stone, which he considers a positive aspect. He notes that there are only 298 more upgrades needed for the regressor's stone. As he checks his phone, he comes across news reports. He learns about millions of monsters descending from the north and the transformation of Seoul into a wasteland due to vampires. He also comes across news about Park Soo-ho, who, with his earthquake skill, has exterminated over 1.2 million monsters heading towards Seoul. Lee Sung-woo is astonished by this news and contemplates whether it could be considered divine power. The story transitions to a flashback in Finland, near Katila, where an old man informs Lee Sung-woo that there is a rumor circulating. It speaks of a god who has emerged in the east, capable of summoning whirlwinds and shaking the earth to expel evil spirits. This god also provides medicine and daily sustenance, serving as a savior for vulnerable humans against evil. This savior bears a distinctive long scar on his face and is seen as a god of salvation in the realm of the deceased. The story returns to the present, and he ponders whether the old man's words held any truth. He reasons that the presence of a long scar on someone's face doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's Park Soo-ho. It dawns on him that there might be several individuals capable of wielding divine power, suggesting the existence of an item that can awaken such abilities. His thoughts drift back to when Akiko informed him about a rare item that appears on one of the planets every 1,000 years, disappearing within 10 days. And this item, when consumed, prevents aging and death. He contemplates how Park Soo-ho could have obtained the Chakyun sword and wonders if he were to return to the moment of the significant change and join forces with him. Could he acquire the red sky fruit? On the other side, in Okinawa's Ishigaki Island, Kurosawa Ikeda informs Takeo Chanu that the U.S. Pacific Fleet, en route to rescue the South American escape team, has been obliterated by sea monsters. Takeo Chanu expresses his concern about the difficulty of reaching Park Soo-ho and questions how they can afford to let go of a man capable of launching a meteorite into space with his fists. Kurosawa suggests that if Park Soo-ho is unwilling to assist, they should consider consuming Korea. He points out that the Korean government has lost its effectiveness and is struggling to defend Seoul under the relentless pressure of the monsters, with their reliance solely on Park Soo-ho's abilities. He explains that cities like Busan, Daegu, Gwangju, and Jeju will likely seek a stronger government and defense contract to ensure their protection. He notes that Busan, currently the most proactive, is on the verge of declaring independence and signing a defense treaty with Japan. Furthermore, he mentions the attractiveness of the Asian portal in Sigwipo on Jeju Island. He predicts that with the forthcoming openings of Gukcheon Dongwon and Busan and Iksan, and as the central people of Gukcheon collaborate with Korean cities, the guardians of these cities will have no choice but to sign defense agreements with them. Suddenly, a portal opens and Dr. Toddler, accompanied by Chief Gilbert Reynolds, emerges from it. Takeo asks Dr. Toddler if he has finally invented the portal generator. He mentions that it's the outcome of their hard work and dedication. But currently, the generator can only accommodate 2 people, and errors occur when 3 or more attempt to use it. He expresses his excitement about sharing a plethora of interesting information with Park Soo-ho, such as the reversion stone and new weapons designed for clearing the level 7 dungeon, among other things. Meanwhile, in Soo-ho Land, all guild members are extracting bloodstones from the deceased monsters, and they are all tied up. Inside the house, the granny is weeping and remarks that it's sad to be this old, especially when everything now appears hazy. Kim Miso advises her to take her medicine 30 minutes after each meal. She exits the room where Choi Soo-young and Gunwoo are having their food and inquires about Park Soo-ho's whereabouts. She responds that he should be with his guild members, cleaning up the field in front of the barricade. Just then, Park Soo-ho arrives and asks if she is looking for him. She informs him that there's an official letter from the government that she would like to share. He questions the official letter's purpose, and she hands him a Guild Zero defense contract. She explains that if he signs it, Suho Guild's level will be elevated to level 0. And Suho Land will be upgraded from District 13 to Suho City. She elaborates that Korea is currently a federation of united cities with autonomy, consisting of 4 large cities, Seoul, Busan, Gwangju, and Daegu, and 3 medium-large ones, along with Jeju Province. Suho City is set to join this list. She explains that Suho City will possess the same autonomy as other large cities and will sign an official mutual defense treaty with the Korean government. Choi remarks that it's a fancy way of implying they should remain within the country and concentrate on defending Korea. He asserts that he has no intention of leaving. She counters that this is precisely when he should state that he must frequently be out of the country. Kim Miso points out that essentially, the government is concerned about the absence of internal defense when he is not in Korea. She inquires if he is comfortable with being pulled in different directions by various individuals who require his assistance. He responds that he only needs to ensure the safety of his home. She assures him that he will be generously compensated for the support he provides, emphasizing that Suho City requires government backing as it is. She believes it is beneficial to mutually assist each other, considering that they are all neighbors, after all. He proceeds to sign the contract. Then, she introduces one more proposal. She suggests he hire her. Their surprise is evident. She describes herself as an ambitious woman and reveals that she holds an executive position at RCD. She promises that if he hires her, she will make every effort to bring in top-tier talent suitable for the prestigious Suho City. She states that she will submit an official job application within a week. He responds that it sounds good to him. She then informs Choi Soo-young that she has received orders to join the Special Task Force for Vampires. Choi Soo-young questions whether the issue with vampires has already been resolved. She explains that they continue to receive reports of murders that appear to be the work of vampires, which is why they are expanding the task force and providing the necessary equipment to address the situation. She mentions that she plans to stay overnight and join the task force the following day, as it is already quite late. Afterward, she heads to the shower and discovers vampire bite marks on her neck. Kim Miso contacts Mr. Chin and informs him that there is some commotion within the group regarding the search, seizure, and arrests. However, she mentions that the construction site is still robust. He says he heard that the use of defective materials in Suho City was a pretext to remove Mr. Jian from the group. She responds that they have temporarily addressed the issues with the power plant facilities, but there is a possibility of another explosion shortly. He says, unfortunately, there are limitations to what they can do with their current technology. He suggests that it would be more efficient if she were to reach out to Tesla in America. She inquires Sujin whether it wasn't the Shilla Group that initially constructed the Bloodstone power plant facilities in Seoul. Sojin interjects, explaining that this was indeed the case initially, but the facilities team from Tesla oversaw the overall construction. She elaborates that they had engaged in technical cooperation with them after paying them patent fees. She says it was quite costly for a limited time frame and without technology transfer. She asks whether Dr. Richard is still the team leader of the facilities team at Tesla. Meanwhile, she contemplates that for Suho Land to achieve technological independence, they require a core engineer to lead the dimensional energy research, along with the necessary equipment, engineers and researchers of various levels, and a returnee inventor of a caliber comparable to Dr. Toddler of British Roland or Dr. Richard of American Tesla. Subsequently, she arrives in Suho Land. After some time, Park Suho arrives at the construction site and inquires about the slow progress of the construction. The workers explain that they are doing their best, but the machines keep halting due to frequent electricity disruptions. Park Junho adds that the cafeterias are also facing electricity issues due to unstable equipment at the Bloodstone power plant facility. Park Suho instructs everyone to step back and harness the power of the Earth's wrath, causing the ground to tremble. The workers identify it as the renowned Suho brand earthquake. Park Junho acknowledges that he might end up knocking himself out again. He says that he needs to hurry up and reinforce the security of the outer perimeter to ensure safety in his absence. He questions whether he truly intends to go to the planet Aruka, to which he confirms his plans. Meanwhile, they spot Kim Miso's car, and she informs them that they have received an urgent request for cooperation from Shilla Guild. Suddenly, Han Dong-soo descends from the mountain, and they question why he came down, as he was instructed to keep watch over the orc village up the hill. He responds that it's because he has found a crocodile and shows them the news. He explains that there is a dungeon within Shilla Guild's district, and its inhabitants are exceptionally powerful. Even Shilla Guild's ace, Minhyuk Kan, was bitten in the leg and severely injured. He speculates that these must be formidable creatures, which he confirms, stating that Minhyuk Kang is an S rank. She expresses relief at this news and informs him that this is the dungeon they need help with, as it is on the verge of breaking. He suggests that he should hurry, and she adds that Shilla Group is a company that possesses engineers and equipment related to the Bloodstone power plant facilities. She mentions that she has requested access to these assets in exchange for assisting them in clearing the dungeon, and once she finishes signing the contract, he joined them. He reassures her, stating that he believes it is on the verge of breaking and that he shouldn't be concerned about it. She clarifies that this assessment is from Shilla Guild's perspective and the actual break is still 8 days away. Additionally, there are 45 other dungeons to consider. She emphasizes that it is Shilla Group that is facing a crisis, so they should wait until they are contacted again. While they are in the midst of their conversation, a helicopter arrives at the scene. Han Dong-soo inquires about its presence, noticing that their guild's name is displayed on it. She explains that DGB has sent it as a gesture of apology. Upon seeing the pilot, he remarks that he thinks he has encountered him before. She confirms that they had indeed ventured into a level 4 dungeon together back in Suho Land in Namyeonju. She identifies the pilot as Min Soo, who had worked on portal management at RCD. He emerges from the helicopter and declares that he will serve as the leader of the Suho Guild portal equipment team. She mentions that they have received a message from Shilla, and their president has only instructed them to read it and proceed. He inquires whether they can depart now. Min Soo guides them, saying this way and he will take him to the dungeon. He instructs them to begin filling the stream with water up to the point where the construction has been completed, as this area is intended for use as a crocodile farm. Park Jun-ho inquires whether she has received any communication from Jang Yishik since he went to Jeonju. She recalls his admiration for the thousand-sword smith Sumpal Jang and mentions that he had always desired the honor of meeting him. She replied that he had not yet located him when she spoke to him earlier that morning. He explains that it was his first time visiting Jeonju and questions whether it is truly necessary to go to such lengths to search for someone, especially since sword craftsmanship seems unrelated to the Bloodstone power plant. She counters that the sword craftsmanship of planet Hades differs from that of Earth, and the crucial factor is Mr. Sumpal Jang's awakened skill, which is an invention, much like Dr. Toddler. She elaborates that he earned the title of 1,000-sword smith on planet Hades, where obtaining skills requires substantial effort, highlighting the significance of his inventive talents. She suggests that his talent may well surpass that of Dr. Toddler. Han Dong-soo raises the possibility that he could be one of those hidden maestros, who are only known by reputation. She agrees, stating that he could be considered as such, and she believes he would make an excellent research director at Suho City if they could eliminate one variable. Meanwhile, inside the helicopter, Park Suho gazes out of the window. Min Soo remarks on how beautiful the Earth used to be, expressing the feeling that the entire planet is now transforming into a colossal dungeon. He shares his distress about watching the news in recent days. Park Suho inquires about the notion of the entire Earth becoming a giant dungeon. Min Soo explains that dungeon monsters are forcing people out of their territories and establishing their villages, leading to significant changes in the Earth's environment. He notes that this phenomenon isn't limited to Korea, it's occurring worldwide. Park Suho realizes that to understand this situation, they must uncover the root cause of the Earth's deterioration. He believes that the High Elves of Eruka may hold the answers to what triggered the catastrophe, the emergence of dungeons, the whereabouts of his missing friends, and the mysteries surrounding him. He queries the whereabouts of the portal leading to the planet Eruka. Min Soo reveals that the Eruka portal in Asia is situated in Siewwipo, Jeju, and its highly classified information is known only to top government officials and RCD equipment technicians. Park Suho contemplates leaving for Eruka as soon as he gathers enough crocodiles to fill the new stream. On the other side, Lee Sung-woo finishes his work at the shop and heads out, contemplating the idea of leaving Busan for the United States. He believes that there are many independent survivors scattered in the fields there, more than in Korea or Japan, and this would make it easier for him to upgrade his regression stone. He thinks that some of the large cities in the United States still possess enough power and intelligence to withstand 10 years of level 7 dungeon breaks and monster waves. He wonders if he could gain access to their intelligence by using his future diary as bait, which could potentially yield more advanced data about Park Suho. Meanwhile, Park Suho enters the dungeon, accompanied by Min Seo, who was initially meant to be dropped off at his destination. He feels a strange sense of familiarity in this place. Suddenly, they are ambushed by crocodiles. He immobilizes them by tying them with tree trunks. He swiftly takes them down, instructing Min Seo to eliminate every threat and collect their bloodstones. While exploring the area, Park Suho notices the claw scratches on a tree, recognizing them as Kuro's marks. He reflects that this used to be his territory and that he hadn't trespassed into Kuro's domain for at least a century before his departure. He asks about Mr. Kuro's identity. He considers him both a friend and a formidable rival. He speculates whether Kuro is searching for him and contemplates the events that might have occurred in this forest during his absence. Park Suho decides to use his searching skills, hoping that they might reveal something. As he activates the skill, he experiences brief flashbacks. However, the memories remain elusive, leaving him with a nagging feeling that he saw something important, even though he can't quite remember, and his level of recollection regarding the forest remains frustratingly low. Park Suho engages in combat with Lizardman, and upon checking his status screen, he identifies it as Lizardman's armor. He remarks that they don't belong in this place and employs his fire fairies to reduce it to ashes, obtaining a blood crystal in the process. He asks if he wants to revisit the world he once lived in before returning to Earth, to which Min Seo responds affirmatively while catching the blood crystal and noting its heat. Park Suho spontaneously begins climbing a tree, directing Min Seo to follow, and reveals that his house is situated up there. As they ascend, he comments on the unexpected nature of a place like this atop a tree. Upon reaching their destination, he describes the scenery as epic and explains that he used to come here whenever he needed a break from cave life. He points out some artifacts, finely crafted stone knives that resemble Stone Age artifacts. He reflects on the memories these artifacts evoke, realizing that they were created before the age of civilization. He contemplates the possibility that he had traversed through time and space, arriving on a random planet from the past, and laments the prospect of never reuniting with his old friends. Suddenly, Min Seo exclaims that he sees crocodiles in the river and suggests they catch them. He expresses doubt and questions whether they need bait. He secures him to a rope and lowers him into the river, claiming to have spotted movement underwater. He contemplates attempting to dunk him when a crocodile prepares to attack. He hurls an arrow at it, successfully subduing the crocodile and urging him to tame it quickly. Checking the crocodile's status screen, he discovers it to be a B rank and remarks on its lingering hostility. He acknowledges the situation's urgency as a swarm of crocodiles approaches their location. He proceeds to tame the crocodile and advances toward the others, while he suggests that his role in the situation is complete and requests to be released. He informs that he would be safer remaining suspended because another group of crocodiles is approaching from the forest. He employs a water fairy to control them. He explains that he cannot tame them if they are attacked. He instructs him to use a tornado to tame them as they descend. He initiates a tornado and expresses concern that they are in danger. He then opens a portal and dispatches all the crocodiles to Suho Land. He mentions that they are going to come live with him. On the other side, there's an issue with an excessive number of crocodiles in Suho Land, and their ditch digger has broken down. Park Junho contacts the Situation Room operator and requests them to convey to Suho that they need to halt the influx of crocodiles, as the situation has become chaotic with over 800 of them filling up the moat. On the other side, Kang Minhyuk watches a news broadcast reporting that Park Suho has successfully cleared a level 6 dungeon in Seoul's District 2 in just 4 days. The dungeon was on the brink of a break, making this achievement even more remarkable. Additionally, the man accompanying him, Min Seo, who had been stuck at D rank for years, managed to level up to C rank within those 4 days. Kang Minhyuk questions why Minsu, who works for the RCD, is accompanying Park Suho and speculates that they might indeed be government-affiliated individuals. Meanwhile, in KH Group's ace, Hong Sehi expresses her desire to leave. The manager reminds her that she is KH Group's ace and that the entire company supports her. But her sudden decision to quit without a clear reason raises questions. She explains that she wants to go to the Suho Guild, He speculates that the Suho Guild might be the government's secret subsidiary hunting unit, intending to recruit talent from across the country to diminish the power of current hunter companies and increase their influence. She clarifies that her reason for going is because of her connection with Park Suho. He agrees to let her go under one condition. Once KH Guild has 5 S-rank hunters, he will grant her departure. She questions if he expects her to train his hunters, which would take years even if they engage in level 5 dungeon activities. He reveals that they have obtained entry rights to a level 6 dungeon Yurikan. She considers selecting a few rankers with potential and focusing on their training, which should expedite their progress in the level 6 dungeon. Meanwhile, in Suho Guild, Park Suho connects the Crocodile Lake with the Yeongnam stream using his power. After completing the task, he suggests that it's time for a celebration. Park Junho enthusiastically agrees and mentions they are planning to have a barbecue in the Purple Village. Just then, Choi Suwon arrives at the scene. Park Suho inquires if she managed to slay all the vampires. She informs them that she has quit the RCD and asks to be let in. She specifies that she'll take room 305 in the officers' quarters and then proceed inside. Park Junho questions if Park Suho is planning to leave for Eruka. He expresses confidence in watching over their home. He vows to protect it with his life. On the other side, Sojin enters Kim Miso's office with a cup of coffee for him. She mentioned that she heard Suwon has joined their team. Kim Miso responds that she got fired from her previous position. She elaborates, explaining that she accidentally killed the defense minister during her vampire hunting mission. She expresses frustration about the situation, feeling that they are simply cutting her loose despite her exceptional perception skills. She also comments on the politics being filled with bothersome people. Just then, Minsu enters the room. Kim Miso asks if he has obtained what she requested. He hands her a box contained within a memory stone. While they discuss this, Kim Miso receives a call from Jang Yishik, who informs her that he has found Sumpal Jang. On the occasion of the completion of the Suho stream construction, Park Suho receives a call from Jang Yishik. He informs him that they are in Purple Village and he will head over right away. Sumpal inquires if he is coming, to which Jang responds that he called him a few minutes earlier and tells him to remember his promise. After a while, she mentions that Jang Yishik has found Sumpal and was in a market in Jeonju. He inquires how Sumpal was found. She replies that he'd received some intel that Sumpal enjoys drinking, so as soon as he arrived, he started looking for some market pubs. The story goes to a flashback. Jang Yishik goes to have some bibimbap in Jeonju when a person pushes Sumpal out of his bar and warns him not to come again. He thinks that the legendary returnee who fell victim to alcoholism. He goes near to him and suggests that he could pay that tab back in. He asks him to join him. When he holds his hand, he feels something strange and tells him to stay away. The story returns to the present, and he inquires if he can still work. She informs him that he spent 8 years on planet Hades after the catastrophe, where he earned the name the Thousand Sword Smith. He is a skilled returnee, and his expertise lies in invention. He might possess some of the answers he has been seeking. He then questions whether she has the memory stone. She shows it to him and mentions that RCD is allowing them to keep it for 2 weeks. He holds it in his hand and employs his searching powers. He asks Park Junho if he can stand guard there. She inquires if he truly wishes to go now. He replies that he wants to meet that guy. Meanwhile, Choi Soo-young rises from her seat and proceeds to the administration office. She inquires if everyone has left and questions the whereabouts of Kim Miso. Sojin responds that she has gone down to Jeongju with Park Soo-ho as they have some business to attend to. On the other side, Monk Myunjin remarks that the more he upgrades his necrobills, the faster the infection spreads. He declares it's time to return to the Orc village now. On the other side, Kim Miso and Park Suho are in a helicopter, and she inquires about Granny Sukcha's whereabouts, wondering if she has been awakened. He explains that Granny Sukcha was awakened when they initially arrived in Namyangju. The story delves into a flashback, where Granny is busy chopping vegetables in the kitchen. Park Suho approaches her and inquires about Granny's well-being. She mentions that she accidentally cut her finger while chopping vegetables and reflects on how she's been feeling old lately. Granny shares her various physical discomforts, such as deteriorating eyesight, trembling hands, back pain, and constant fatigue. Park Suho reassures her that she can rest whenever she feels tired and mentions that they can find food at nearby places. He then uses his fairy magic to heal her injured finger. Spotting some cheese on a plate, he asks if he can eat it. Granny warns him that it's poison due to the presence of rats and cockroaches, which she intends to eliminate. The story returns to the present. He remarks that it seems one of the rats or roaches she had poisoned has awakened. She asks if Granny Sukja knew she was awakened. He explains that if Granny Sucha hadn't been awakened, she would have died when she got attacked by that vampire. Min Suseo informs them that they will be landing at Jeonju City Hall in 5 minutes. Meanwhile, in Suho Land, a vampire is about to bite a girl, and Choi Suung intervenes, kicking the vampire. However, it's all staged. They explain that they are doing this for their YouTube video. After some time, Kim Biso informs Park Suho that Suung is in the news. He wonders why she's involved in an altercation with that kid. She explains that although they need to make money, she has been getting concerned about the increasing number of people coming in. However, she sees this as an opportunity and suggests making Suung the head of security. He agrees, saying it's a good idea, and decides to go along with it. After a while, they reach their destination. She states that they need to head up the hiking trail on Mount Godok. He asks if they need to be this careful. She explains that if word gets out that they want him, then he'll become ridiculously expensive, and they will never be able to afford him. She emphasizes the importance of confidentiality. He says he will never understand this world. After a while, Jang Yishik introduces them to Sunpul. Sunpul believes that it is indeed Park Suho, and that he is truly standing right in front of him. Kim Miso informs him that they have come a long way to meet him. He mentions that he has been waiting for them and invites them inside. After a while, they all sit inside, and Park Suho looks at him. He thinks he was expecting a washed-up alcoholic, but his eyes are alive. He asks why he has been waiting for him. He says it's because he saw hope on that day. The story shifts to a flashback. Sunpul is seated in a pub when he observes on TV that Park Suho and Lee Sung-woo engaging in a fight at the Tokyo Stadium. He is shocked to witness Park Suho knock out Lee Sung-woo. He inquires if there is something he wants from him. Sunpul responds by requesting him to kill someone for him, and if he does so, he will join his guild. He turns to Kim Miso and suggests they leave, stating that he doesn't need someone like that. He confesses that the person he wants dead is the one who killed his wife. He shares that he pleaded with them not to take Chhua, begging for her life and willing to do anything to save her. He reflects on how, since that day, he has been tormented by nightmares every single night. He believes that he can't afford to lose Chhua, so he does whatever they tell him to protect her, even producing thousands of swords for them. In flashback, he questions them about why he didn't bring her today either, wondering if she is very sick, and pleads to see his daughter. He mentions that they promised not to harm her, and he complies with all their demands. He requests that they return his daughter to him. He mentions that ever since that time, he has been consumed by thoughts of revenge and has developed PTSD, experiencing flashbacks involving swordsmen. Meanwhile, she inquires if that's the reason he fled planet Hades and has been in hiding since then. He confirms this and states that he will continue to search for him, with nothing on Earth capable of protecting him from his pursuit. Park Suho questions his strength and asks who exactly he wants to eliminate. He reveals the name of the person, Namgung Janchen, explaining that he was certain he could kill him after seeing his match with Lee Sunwoo. She asserts that he cannot kill him. He asks why not, and she clarifies that Namgung Janchen is the head of the Namgung family, one of the 3 major families leading the people of the Central Plains in Hades, and killing the leader of the Namgung family would provoke the entire Central Plains against him. He suggests that he could transform into an animal and sneak in for an assassination, ensuring that no one would know it was him. He responds that he doesn't need to worry about that, as it doesn't matter whether they know or not. After a while, she tells him to hold on because this isn't a simple problem. He responds by stating that a chief must protect the family of his clan members, and once he proves his worth, he will help him seek his revenge. Then, he performs some magic and presents a bow in front of him, instructing him to analyze it. He holds the bow in his hands and identifies it as a handmade wooden bow, noting that it's quite rare to find one like it today. He asks where he acquired it, and he explains that he picked it up in a dungeon. He further elaborates that this isn't a bow from the modern world and that his skill allows him to determine the age of objects up to 300 million Earth years ago. However, he can't determine the age of this particular bow. He identifies it as a birch bow made by an ancient civilization on Earth over 300 million years ago, acknowledging that it doesn't make sense. But that's his analysis. Park Suho contemplates whether the planet he is on is Earth. Continuing, he mentions that typically artifacts and jewels from dungeons are from Eruko or other planets, but he can't deceive the perception of a returnee from planet Hades. He suggests that if he can level up his skill, he'll be able to provide a more accurate analysis if he can ensure his safety. He then delves into the past, recalling that at the start of the catastrophe, when they were still researching the dungeons, the Ministry of Science and Technology, along with the RCD, destroyed all civilian research facilities and information, and silenced everyone involved. She acknowledges that this happened before she joined the RCD. He explains that all of Korea's core dungeon researchers and facilities disappeared to an unknown location, and researching the dungeons was banned. He was a low-ranking researcher in a facility in the countryside at that time, and he managed to escape to planet Hades just before they were about to receive special attention. He questions what the government was trying to hide. She suggests that there was likely pressure from external sources or deals with other countries, although they would have called it an agreement, considering they were still conducting research in the United States and the United Kingdom. He asks if Toddler didn't know anything, to which she responds that he wouldn't have told him even if he did. And she asks if he's sure they didn't conduct any experiments on him while he was there. He mentions that there is something off about Toddler and contemplates whether he should kill him. He replies by telling him to leave it to him. He'll analyze whatever he needs if he gives him some time. He hands him a stone and instructs him to analyze it. He asserts that this is a memory stone, even though he is aware that something is always said by the warriors of the Central Plains. He states that this stone embodies the desires of the people of the Central Plains, and it is referred to as the evidence of history by them. He maintains that it's a fragment of a planet, but simultaneously, it is the soul of the planet that remembers those who have left their legacy upon it. And legend has it that the sorcerers of the Central Plains are capable of using this to witness the achievements of great individuals throughout history. Park Suho wonders, does that mean the planet is watching me? He holds the stone and employs his power, and a screen displays that Earth 7 is observing him, and his data is being saved on Earth 7's server. He inquires, what is Earth 7? He pledges to investigate it, just give him some time. He reflects that thanks to Sunpul, he has finally discovered that the enigmatic entity is called Earth 7. He promises to appoint him as the head researcher of the Suho Guild. He rises to his feet and declares, let's seek revenge and assemble everyone. After a while, they all reach Suho Land. Sunpul remarks that this place feels mystical. The more he sees, the more amazing it becomes. Park Suho inquires about Choi Sulan. Kim Miso explains that she's been getting sick a lot lately, so she advised her to take a day off and rest. He informs the others that he is planning on visiting planet Hades. Han Dong-soo expresses concern, stating that it's dangerous there without a guild. He elaborates, explaining that planet Hades is an eternal battleground, and the war between the Mammon and the people of the Central Plains never ceases. He clarifies that they didn't split the land in half, with each occupying their side, but rather divided themselves into separate clans, each establishing their territory. The Mammons are too savage to even consider visiting any of their camps, and the people of the Central Plains are aggressive and tend to be exclusive, so they need to have a guide with them if they want to visit. He adds that he has a guide right here, pointing to Sunpul. Park Junho asks why he wants to go to planet Hades all of a sudden and what about Erika. Sunpul states that to repair Suho Land's Bloodstone power plant, they need ore from planet Hades, which is known as meteoritic iron. However, it's the primary mineral used in the manufacture of various weapons, so all exports of it have been prohibited. Jang Yishik inquires, so if exports are banned, does that mean they have to steal it? Kim Miso questions if there is truly no other option. He explains that he examined the Bloodstone power plant and found that it is breaking down because the proportion of alloys used in the core shield is incorrect. He mentions that the core components are also questionable. He asserts that if they truly want to resolve this issue, the best current option would be to replace those parts with ones made from meteoritic iron from planet Hades. Myungjin declares that he will join him, and he has heard that planet Hades is filled with elite martial artists whom Earth's rankers can't even compare to. If he could find just a single book on martial arts in one of their villages, it would be worth going there. Han Dong-soo and Jang Yishik are also prepared to go. Park Suho states that he supposes he could take one of them. He announces that he will give them a challenge, and the one who successfully solves it will accompany him to planet Hades. He instructs them to find a way to communicate with him from Earth when he is on planet Hades, emphasizing that if something he can't handle occurs while he is away, he will need a means of getting in touch with him. He departs, saying, "Let me know when they figure it out." After a while, Park Suho and Sunpul eat food. Sunpul explains that there are 2 ways to level up on planet Hades. He mentions that the first way is by killing a Mammon, which the people of the Central Plains call merit. The other method is through technique training, which is the most basic way to control the energy within their bodies, and they refer to it as inner strength training. He says he doesn't quite understand it. He asks if he wants to witness the power of inner strength. He harnesses his power and breaks a tin pack. Park Suho inquires about the nature of that magic. He explains that it's inner strength, and the higher the level, the more effective its manifestation becomes. If he focuses on training his inner strength, He can attain D rank without even hunting, just as he did. He emphasizes that performing tricks like this is insignificant compared to having true control of his inner strength. He states that D-rank awakened individuals on Earth would be considered commoners on planet Hades, while S-rankers here are equivalent to first-class masters there. He mentions that he could throw a stone in any direction and knock over a dozen M. He adds that those at the peak class would be on par with SS rank individuals here on Earth, and the great houses have tens, if not hundreds, of them among their ranks. He says that they can leave the house without worrying about something happening, unlike him. He reveals that Namdung Janchen is an ultra-superior master who has pushed both his inner strength and outer strength to their limits. He responds with surprise, asking if he's telling him that he was able to achieve that with a 1-inch punch. He then asks what rank an ultra-superior master would be considered on Earth. He explains that there hasn't been anyone on Earth to reach that level yet, making it difficult to make a direct comparison. But their guess is around triple U rank. He clarifies that being an ultra-superior master doesn't mean one is invincible, and anyone could fall victim to the poison dart of a well-trained first-class assassin on planet Hades. He points out that even the fiercest beast can succumb to the sting of a poisonous bug in the wild. Either way, he expresses anticipation for the encounter. He thinks to himself that he's forgotten about being nervous, he's getting excited about it. He realizes that he needs to study this guy. Park Suho asks a curious question. Why would someone who has accomplished enough to earn that name not be a respected figure on Hades? Why was his family treated differently? He explains that his wife, So-young, was the daughter of the Lords of Central Plains, and he often helped with repairs at her house, which is how they met. He reflects that it was the happiest time of his life, but that happiness didn't last long. The people of the Central Plains follow a strict class system, and when they discovered that a mere human had married the daughter of a lord and had a child with her, it led to the downfall of her family. His wife and her family were all killed. He continues, mentioning that he was able to save his own life and his daughter's life due to his fame as the Thousand Swordsmith. Park Suho inquires if he knows his daughter's whereabouts. He sadly admits that he doesn't even know whether she's dead or alive, and that he has been dreaming of revenge ever since. Suho reassures him, stating that he will seek revenge on his behalf. Just then, Choi Soo-won arrives. He questions why she isn't resting more. She begins eating and shows her sword to Sunpul, asking if he made it. He replies that he has forged quite a few swords in his day. He examines her sword and asks how the Soul Slayer ended up here. The story flashes back to when Kim Maleong of Aiken approached Sunpul. He tells Sunpul that he has risked his life to find him before he departs from planet Hades, and he requests a sword. He explains that, being from Korea, he has chosen a special sword for him. He implores him to promise to return alive and use the sword to protect their homeland. After Kim Maleong leaves, he realizes that it is not the right sword. The story returns to the present, and Choi Soo-young explains that the man who brought this sword back has passed away, and she is now its third owner. Sunpul reflects that Soul Slayer is one of the 6 swords he crafted after seeking revenge, and he cursed it with his grief. Soul Slayer can consume the soul of those it cuts and erode the soul of its master, and whoever wets its blade with blood will ultimately be killed by the sword. Choi Soo-young adds that she doesn't understand why, but this thing keeps crying out all the time, which is causing discomfort to her ears. She asks if he could fix it for her. Sunpul responds, explaining that Soul Slayer cries out as a warning whenever it's separated from its master or comes near a foreign species, and it cuts to the soul of its victims. He concludes that he will have to examine it more closely and decides to take the sword. Park Suho inquires if she finds bats suddenly appealing or if she has any cravings to bite people or anything like that. She admits that sometimes she feels like taking a bite out of him. She then questions what he means when he expresses his desire to journey to another planet. He responds by asking what's wrong with that idea. She reminds him of how he passed out when he initially returned to Earth. She points out that after he wakes up, his strength and dimensional energy are weakened, yet he still wishes to go to planet Hades. He insists that planet Hades might offer a different experience. She questions if he is willing to risk his life for a mere 50% chance, and he believes that someone will assist him to the hospital if he faints there. She expresses concern that he has been displaying signs of burnout and narcolepsy lately. Sunpul reassures her that he will find a solution. On the other side, Han Dong-soo, Jang Yishik, and Myeongjin are doing their utmost to discover a method for communicating from Earth to planet Hades. After a while, Park Suho receives an email from them containing their ideas, but he is dissatisfied with all of them. After some time, Park Suho goes to the temple and encounters Myeongjin. He inquires about whom he has selected to accompany him to planet Hades. He replies that he is still contemplating his decision. Just at that moment, Gunwoo arrives and inquires if they are conducting a quiz, expressing his eagerness to participate. Park Soo-ho clarifies that they are attempting to determine how to establish contact with Earth from planet Hades. After a while, Park Jun-ho is writing something on Biku, and Kim Miso is on a call with Park Soo-ho, stating that she has everything he asked for ready. She asks if this idea was Gunwoo's. He sends Biku through a portal, and they are delighted to see that his writing hasn't been erased, and it has worked. The Biku is sent back through the portal. Park Jun-ho states that he will not let him go. He admits he cannot honestly express his desire to bring a child alone. He says Gunwoo has not even awakened, and he cannot pass through the gate. Sunpul mentions that Gunwoo has already been awakened. He explains that Gunwoo awakened after only 3 days of inner strength training, and he has never seen a child like that. He adds that if he's not mistaken, Gunwoo is a prodigy and was born to be awakened. He may encounter someone like him maybe once a millennium. Park Soo-ho agrees, saying he has witnessed it himself. Park Jun-ho insists that he cannot take a kid to such a place. Sunpul mentions that he looked into Gunwoo's eyes while he was training and noticed the same look as in his daughter, Chwea's eyes. He states that if they do nothing to heal Gunwoo's broken heart, he will become an uncontrollable child. He suggests that if Gunwoo trains under a master on planet Hades and gains control of his energy, he will be able to manage himself. He acknowledges that the planet Hades is exceedingly dangerous. Park Soo-ho encourages him, saying that life is a series of new adventures, and if they let fear paralyze them, they will never gain anything. He decides that he is taking Gunwoo with him to planet Hades. Meanwhile, at Japan's defense headquarters, Kurosawa Aikita is on a call and inquires about Park Soo-ho's plans regarding planet Hades. The individual on the other end mentions that they have received an official request for cooperation from Suho City and asks for guidance on how should respond. He speculates that they are seeking access to the portal to planet Hades. He advises them to grant access. On the other side, Park Soo-ho, Sunpul, and Gunwoo are prepared to depart for planet Hades and reunite with everyone. Kim Miso instructs Sunpul that if Park Soo-ho faints while passing through the gate, he should bring him back immediately. Choi Soo-bung approaches Park Soo-ho and warns him not to cheat while he is there. He playfully tells her to take care of herself and not to bite anyone. After a while, they depart via helicopter. Meanwhile, Kurosawa Aikita and Takeo Chanu are waiting for them on top of the building. Takeo Chanu mentions that it was very generous of him to let Park Soo-ho use the gate. He remarks that if one can't defeat the enemy, one should join the enemy. Just then, Park Soo-ho arrives and, without greeting them, moves forward. Sujin apologizes to Kurosawa Aikita for the chief's behavior, explaining that he is still not quite adjusted to polite society. Kurosawa Aikita assures her that there's nothing to worry about and that it's an honor to have them there. The three of them are about to enter the portal to planet Hades. Before entering, Sunpul provides them with a pill and explains that these pills will allow them to understand and speak the languages of planet Hades for 1 year. He tells them to take the pills now. They consume the pills and enter the portal.